Hi everyone, my name is Peggy and I am coming into my second growing season here on my allotment in Kanagawa Prefecture, Japan, which is zone 9B, where I am trying to grow a cut flower garden. Thanks for checking out my channel. Okay, the sun is shining here today, but it is cold. Kichiro very lovingly made me a flask of bancha to try and keep me warm, which is lovely. But we are about to come into the coldest week of the year, so it's lovely. Today we are due snow tomorrow, which will be the first and probably the last snowfall that we have this year, being in zone 9B. But it means that before that, after that, we're not going to have much frost at all. So I am down here to try and get the garden ready because I already have things growing on at home. I have my seedlings planted. I've got some snapdragons, some stalk, some calendula. I've got my cornflower. I've already put my sweet pea in. Now, if you watch my last video about sweet pea, you will know that my sweet pea weren't looking very good. And as I suspected, most of them have not survived. But I came down a few weeks ago and I reseeded here, put down some new seeds. Some of those are starting to come up, and some of the sweet pea that died back have actually put up new shoots as well. So I'm hoping that they're going to survive. I have put in a few more seeds back home just in case, so I've got them growing on as well. But as soon as February hits, that is really kind of the coldest time here. So I want to have the garden ready, that as soon as the frost is over, I can start getting stuff in the garden and get the longest growing season possible that I can. So today is just a maintenance day. You can see the allotment's a bit of a mess. So I'm going to clean it up, I'm going to weed it out, I am going to try and I'm not going to dig the soil, but I do want to break it up a little. So I'm just going to put some air through it without actually turning the soil over to try and help with compaction. And then I'm going to put down some compost. As well as that, last year I had string lines across where I was going to grow everything, and I found that really helpful. Not just because it made it faster when it was planting, but for things like my zinnia that I'm going to direct seed, it meant I knew where the seeds were meant to be. Now, again, if you watched my videos from last year, you'll know that I got stuff in the ground late, and because of rainy season, a lot of my seed got washed away and things were showing up where they weren't supposed to be showing up. So it's really handy to have the string lines in there to tell me where I should have stuff growing, and hopefully this year that is where it will grow. But we'll have a quick look around the garden to see what's happening, and then we'll get set to tidy up. Okay, so here is one of my not very happy looking sweet pea, brown and crusty. But I do have new shoots starting to come in all over the place. There's another one. So I'm hoping that some of these will still be viable, and like I say, I have more growing on at home. This is a Daucus dara that I planted last year, and it didn't do anything at all last year, but it's really genki now and threatening to take over the garden. So I'm going to leave it in there, and it is putting out lots of nice new fluffy shoots. So I'm hoping that might actually flower for me this year and give me a nice bit of foliage. The only problem is this is right in the middle of where my snapdragon are going, so I am going to have to sacrifice a couple of snapdragon to keep that guy in there. This little stubble of grass doesn't look like much, but again, this is something that I put in last year that just didn't do anything, but it survived, so I'm going to leave it there, and it still has some greenery to it. This is supposed to be a ponytail, so it's supposed to get really big and huge and fluffy and be something that I can use in dry arrangements as well. So again, I'm going to leave him in there because he's not taking up very much room at the moment, and just see if anything comes of that. Behind that you can see another of my grasses that didn't do anything last year. This was one of my bunny tails, and that got really shaded out very quickly by the gypsophilia. No, it didn't, the gomphrena that I had in there. So I'm going to leave him there as well and see if I get some grass from that. The one next to that as well is a scabious, I think, that kind of died away and I didn't think would do anything, but it's actually putting on some new growth as well. So I'm going to leave that in until I need to pull it up and see if anything comes of that. And then, of course, I've got my poppy, which are going mad and exploding. And again, these didn't do anything last year because I put them in too late and it got hot too fast and they didn't like it, but they didn't die and they're still greening up. They're now huge. I thought I needed to thin them out, but I've just had a look through there and they're actually just massive clumps of very few plants. So I'm hoping that they might give me some poppy. Again, slightly annoying because that is where my stock is meant to be going. So I am going to have to sacrifice a little bit of my stock to leave them in there, but I think that'll be worth it. Okay, so that's all that's actually in the garden right now. Not very much going on. So I'm going to go ahead and start clearing it out and getting it ready for the next stuff to come in. that is the roots of something that I left in last year. And it's going to want to come back. Now I don't want this in the garden this year, I don't have room for it, it got really big, but it was actually quite nice, so I might just cover those roots up now so they don't dry out and take that home and see if I can find a wee space in the garden for it. Okay, it's all weeded. And it's really not a very weedy garden, with the exception of that back section where it backs onto the next allotment. So it's really easy to do. And you may have noticed I don't dig up my weed roots, I just chop their heads off. And I'm actually going to bury most of the heads back in under the compost that I'm about to put on, because it'll all just die down and add more stuff to the soil. Or maybe it'll end up with a really weedy garden. But to be honest, I plant my flowers really close together, as you can do in a cut flower garden. It's a bit different from when you're doing just a pretty garden. I want to grow as many plants as I can, so as long as I stay on top of the weeds quite regularly, just chopping their heads back off. I found last year I really didn't have much of a problem with it. It was a 10-minute job at the beginning of every time I came down to the allotment. But because I put most of my plants in already started, they have a jump start on the weeds and they very quickly crowd them out. So I don't worry too much about the weeds. This tea is nice, but it is as hot as lava. Jesus. Okay, so next I'm going to work the soil. Like I say, I'm not going to turn the soil. I don't want to be breaking up my soil structure. I'm just going to be trying to add a little bit of air into it and to try and decompact it a little bit without actually turning it. Where to start? Unsurprisingly, right where the walkways are, next to that is quite compacted. Can you guys see all the wee birds in here, hoping that I've turned over a worm for them? Hi, she was talking about you. Okay, that looks all pretty and nice and even. So I'm going to go ahead and add some compost just on the top. Now, I don't have enough for the garden. I know I don't have enough, but I'm just going to put down a little layer now. And then when I come to actually plant stuff in, I'll probably put another bit on top as well. Okay, that's all the compost that I have for now, but I've put it where I think roughly the first flowers are going to go in. So this is where I'm going to have my snapdragons and my stock, which are my spring things, coming in, and then a bit where I'm going to have my zinnia. So it'll do for today. It'll give it time to kind of work its way into the soil. And you'll notice I haven't put any compost on. I do have compost here, but I'm not going to put that on. Instead, I'll put some on the zinnia patch when I come to plant them. But the other ones, when I put my seedling in the ground, I'm going to put just a little bit of compost on them underneath the roots for them, just to save compost, basically. It's expensive, all adds up. So that's me for today, and it's looking all right. It's not a mess anymore. I've not got the messiest allotment on the plot anymore, which is great. I haven't done my marking out. I'm still going to think about how I'm going to do that and how much time I'm actually going to spend putting on the string lines, and I think I possibly will just put it down for the things that I'm going to self-seed. But that is work for another day, because it is midday and it is time for me to get home and eat and take my babies to the park. So it's really exciting to actually see what's going to be here. I have my plan. You know, right now it's just bare land, but this is what we're hoping for, you know. I've got all my zinnia. Hopefully I'm going to do better with my aster this year. I've got lots of rudbeckia, which is replacing the sunflower, because I wasn't overly keen on the sunflower last year, so I've got lots of rudbeckia coming in. The other thing I'm starting to think about now is that my snapdragon, which I'm putting in over here, it's quite a big patch. It's basically everything after my sweet pea there is all going to be snapdragon, which in this little plot is quite a lot. But these don't like the heat. So they put out lots and lots and lots of flowers, but they don't like the heat. Now, the heat changes really rapidly here around April to May. So we have Golden Week, and usually around Golden Week, which is a holiday here, a national holiday, around Golden Week, the weather changes from being very, very cold to being nice and warm. Basically, spring comes in a week. And then it heats up really, really quickly after that. So I don't think my snapdragon are going to last much longer than mid-May, maybe end of May. My stalk are the same now, whereas my snapdragon, when I cut them, they'll come back and I'll get more and more flowers. Your stalk are one and done. I'm basically going to get one flower, one stem off each one. None of my stalk are branching types. That you can get some branching types of stock, but they weren't available to me. So I've gone for some nice stock that I wanted, but they are all just going to be one cut and then done. And again, as soon as it gets hot, they're going to die. They don't like the heat at all. So I'm thinking I'm going to have two big patches left in the garden, probably May, definitely by June. So last year I didn't start planting anything until June, because I didn't get the allotment till June, and a lot of stuff still did quite well. My amaranth, for example, did really well. My sunflower, I swore I wouldn't grow sunflower again, but they grew really quickly and really well. And if I've got a lot of space and it's at the back of the garden, I might actually put a few more sunflower in. I might really regret that. I didn't like the sunflower. But then there's other things like the cornflower. Now I've only got space for a tiny amount of cornflower here, but I've got so much growing on at home already that I might put a bit more of my cornflower in there. What else have I got? I've got quite a lot of the calendula, and I didn't like that very much last year as well, but I'm trying some new varieties this year, and hopefully it'll do better and I'll like that a bit more. I've also, I got a lot more dahlia tuber than I thought I would have when I dug them up last week. So I might put some of my dahlia in there as well. Dahlia. I'm starting to think that I might be wrong and it's dahlia. So I'm going to have these two areas that will be kind of empty, and I'm looking at what I can move around to get the most out of the garden. Now, if you watched my channel last year, you'll know that a lot of the garden didn't grow, and I ended up with big chunks. Basically, this whole row had very little in it other than my amaranth. And I don't want to do that again. It's a small plot and I want to get as much as I can in here. So I'm thinking that as well as growing what I need for this plan, I'm going to start growing up some more of a few things so that I have them growing in pots at home, and when stuff starts to die out here, I can just replace it in the garden. My only problem is, like I say, the problems I had last year were rainy season come on really quickly, wash a lot of stuff away, and then the heat kicks in. And I mean, we're talking 35 degrees Celsius upwards. It's hot. So yeah, just a lot more planning this year, which is good. I mean, I'm learning every year, so I can learn what didn't work last year, what my problems were last year, and how I can move that around. And you never know, there might be some sunflower in this garden by the end of the year, even though I swore at the end of last growing season that I would never grow it again. maybe you'll get some. Anyway, that's me for now. If you want to follow along and see how the garden progresses throughout the summer, then remember to hit the subscribe button below, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.